everybody, to Bible Over Beer. I am Steve.
I am Randy.
Salute.
Salute. Excited that you're all joining us today
Absolutely.
for the Book of Esther.
Book of Ester, and it's my challenge or task or honor, whichever way to do the summary on it. So I'm going to keep it somewhat high level. There are details like everything, but I think the whole summary is kind of the point of this book, maybe.
Yep.
So, anyways, to get started, it all started during this is a part of the exile, right? This is it's not even in the Holy Land. This is
Right.
in Persia, and there was that
In
king
the city of Susa.
Susa.
And something I have to remind myself is how these books are not in order.
Correct.
Right? So I do like to go and see when did Esther take place as opposed to what we read
Yeah.
in our last book. And it's 100 years after the exile of the Jews.
Well, that's good to know. I don't know for a fact, but I've heard a lot of things that the Bible's in order for a reason, but it's not in chronological order. So.
And why are these Jews in Susa? They didn't return, so not all the Jews returned.
Yeah, well, just like the last stories we heard, that we didn't do the migration until then. So, but these ones are outcasts, and we'll wrap it up with some interesting takeaways we had on this because it is an interesting book. So,
Absolutely.
Continue on. King of the Persians, King Ahasuerus, he ruled from India to Ethiopia, and he basically starts off having a banquet. It goes on for several days or whatever, and they kind of reference that he's getting rather drunk, so he's bored, so he says, bring out my beautiful wife, Queen Vashti, to show her off, because she's pretty, and she essentially refuses, saying, I'm not going to go to the drunk and beck and call to be a mockery. Yeah. This obviously infuriates him, and then his other princes of Persia, so they made a decree that wives have to honor their husbands and do as they say.
That's basically it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm paraphrasing this, and then they also said, just get rid of her and get a new one. So that comes into the title of the book we're looking. It's the lady named Hadassah, which that was something you probably didn't catch the first time, right? So her actual name was Hadassah. She was a niece of Mordecai the Jew. When we learn that her name becomes Esther.
Esther, yeah.
That she is after this. I'll kind of jump ahead a little bit, but basically he said you should get all the beautiful women around town and choose a new wife. So Esther is part of
beauty
that. Beauty pageant, and they all go through this. It's interesting tie into my everyday life, and it's a sad story, but not really in a sad story state. But they talked about the beautification. It's like a whole year, and they go through like 6 months of oil and myrrh, and then 6 months of spices. And a friend of mine, he did soap for a while, and his soap was phenomenal. I mean, it was really good, and I'm a guy, so I don't really care. But I found that this soap, just look forward to showers because it smelled so good, it worked well. And one of the comments on his Facebook page was, Esther would have been happy with your products. And I'm like, I was reading this when that comment was being made. The sad part of it is he's switched jobs now. He said soap making was awesome, but it was too time consuming and to scale up the need to go to replace his lifestyle. Sure. So going back in, so this introduces, so she gets caught or gets added to the court, and then we're introduced to this bad guy, Haman or Haman, however they call him. He was promoted, and he was like second in charge to the king. And
exactly.
We were supposed to fear him, and
he's also the villain of the story.
Yeah, he is the enemy of the Jews, as we'll find out.
Yes, exactly.
But he's very upset that Mordecai, Esther's uncle, did not respect this position and or bow to him. So he convinced the king to let him make a decree, and the king let him use his ring and wrote out this decree that on them they did cast lots or whatever, and they picked a day.
That's right.
It was the 13th day of the month. It's the Purim, or what they call it.
Yep, the
Pur. What they called the day of Purim. We'll learn that.
We'll get to that.
Get to that. But anyways, it's I didn't know that that's kind of how it's the 13th,
right.
and I didn't get that from the Bible. I looked it up, and they said it's kind of where the superstition of Friday the 13th possibly came in. Don't know if there's any truth to that, but anyways, they wrote this big decree up that in this month, and I'm not sure which month it was. It's Adam or something like that.
Except for the 13th day of the 12th month. But
so
I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah, we know 12th month is December today, so I don't know
if
Adam was whatever.
So and you have to remember, they're not aware that our new queen, Esther, of her heritage.
Good point.
So keep that in mind.
Yep. So Mordecai said, don't let them know, because Jews were, obviously they were captives. They were lesser than human, I guess. Well, not human, but lesser than the royal class, and they were also captives. So she didn't, but she's found favor with Mordecai, and she ended up becoming his wife. And then when she becomes a wife, he's like really in love with her. So pretty much anything she wants, she gets. But
yeah,
she learns. So there's a little segue to this. Before that, Mordecai had found out, he had heard that some of the eunuchs that are in charge of the king's harem and stuff were going to plot to kill him. Mordecai told that to Esther. Esther told it to the powers that be. It was noted and written down, but forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. But it plays a part coming up. She makes it. So basically, she becomes his wife now. And she learns that this decree through Mordecai tells her, look, you got to help us out because the Jews are going to be wiped out. There's a big issue with in the Persian king that you can't approach the king without being summoned.
Right.
And if you could be put to death. There's that golden, what's that thing that he can hand out?
Scepter.
His golden scepter.
If he raises the scepter, you're allowed to approach.
And you touch it.
You won't be killed.
Yeah. So essentially, she argues, and I use argument as a light way. She's just terrified that at first I could lose my life. I haven't been summoned to him in a while. I know he's my favorite. Mordecai says, "You better do it, or we're all done." And she says, "Well, I'm going to do it, and if I die, I die." So that was pretty brave.
She had basically said, deliverance must come from somewhere. So she is willing to put her life on the line for this. And he says to her, Mordecai, her cousin, perhaps you've become queen for this moment.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of interesting part there.
Mm-hmm.
So she does go in, and she does approach the king, and he offers her the scepter. And then, but she doesn't tell him what she wants. She said, because he offered her anything up to half a kingdom. So she's rather fond in his eyes, or he's rather fond of her. So she's like, "How about I'd like to prepare, a banquet for you and Haman, and so the villain, yeah." So they accept, and it's funny because Haman leaves and he sees Mordecai out there in a sackcloth, obviously, and he's still not bowing down to him. So he's mad, and of course, he I guess he goes home, and the queen says, "Come back at the next day, and we'll give another banquet for you, a feast this time, and it'll be a private one." And the first feast is, I kind of got ahead of myself, sorry, in the paraphrasing. After the banquet, they were a little bit tipsy, and Haman was angered because he saw Mordecai still out there. And he consulted his family. His family said, put up a pole. There's different, if you watch videos, I got that it was a gallows pole.
That's what,
Yeah, and what we read was gallows, so I watched some,
gallows,
basically it said they were going to stab him on it. But anyways, so he told his family, so he's all excited, he's not going to get mad. He invited back, this is Haman, to a private audience with the king and the queen. And then lo and behold, when he gets there, he tells him about the plot of somebody trying to kill the Jews, and it's you, Haman.
That's right.
And that angered the king, and he left the room, and for some reason Haman kind of fell, begging for his life from Esther, falls on her, and the king sees it, and it's like, oh my goodness, you're going to attack her in my own house. So he ends up having him hung on his own pole that he had for Mordecai. Right. So it was.
Now, did you bring up that Mordecai? The king decided to reward Mordecai. It was brought to the king's attention. What Mordecai had done and saved his life, basically, and the king's like, well, we need to honor him. So this is like, Haman is preparing to kill him, and the king is now wanting to have Haman reward him.
But this is the interesting thing. I have so many notes for a summary, and that's not very good because I'm skipping it. Good point, because what he said was, the funny thing is it wasn't even on purpose. He just basically, when he was bored, the king couldn't sleep one night. This is before the second banquet, I believe.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
And
before
then
the second banquet.
Yeah, and he ends up getting the Chronicles and reads through them, and he goes, I know this character, and he saved his wife. And he asked his people, did we do anything for him? No. So he basically, he's going to ask his right-hand man, which is Haman.
Yeah.
And Haman's thinking it's himself, says, oh, dress him up in the finest garb, all that you've worn, put your crown on him, and best horse, parade him around town.
And lead the parade of honor for Mordecai. Yeah. And
this is what Haman had to do. So here, everybody in town knows he hates him, he's got to kill him. Yeah. And then next thing you know, he's parading him, so.
So this is a reversal that's about to happen here.
Yeah,
so you're going to see one man's here, and it's going to go.
Yep. So that next day, then of course I've already told you about how she divulged that he was the bad enemy of the Jews, and we're going to kill them all. And she shared that she was Jewish, and he didn't care because he loved her. And I'm not certain if he was in Persia, if he even cared. You know, I think that was more in the other areas. So they ended up killing Haman and giving the house. Right. And then still had this decree that Haman did, and you can't undo a king's decree.
Not even a king.
Not even a king can do it.
Decree.
But they're very smart. She can write a new decree, and so she did. And her and Mordecai, and then used the king's, whoever the apprentices are. Who are they called? The people that keep the scribes. Yeah, they documented this thing where the Jewish people
would be allowed to defend themselves.
Defend themselves, and rid themselves of all that wished to do harm from them. So, and passed it out to the 127 different nations within the realm, and every governor got it, and every language got it. And they on that day they went, and the Jewish people banded together and attacked, and they were so mighty that people were actually helping them because they were fearful of them. And then other people, I think,
people were pretending to be Jews.
Because they're fearful of it. And then even the ultimate, so like Randy, the balance of powers went from Haman being top to this now. Haman's family's gone. They killed every one of his sons and family.
Yep.
And then
Esther actually got possession of his property.
Yep.
And Mordecai was elevated to Haman's place.
And and that's where we get into. Now they celebrated this feast, a 2-day feast.
Purim.
And that's where it was made from the casting of lots. Word Purim. Apparently means the reverse of it. I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah, then so Mordecai becomes a somebody whose whole culture was going to be wiped out. People, dressed in sackcloth, totally ignored, not listened to, hated by the second in command, rises to become second in command, and now he is the second highest person aside from the king. Right. So, and it's kind of an interesting story. So. Since I rambled the most, so you had a pretty good point.
Yes. In the book of Esther, you don't read the word God, Lord, anywhere in this, but yet his fingerprints are all over it.
Yeah, it was. When I read a chapter, I'll read it, and then I'll go watch different videos. Usually the Bible Project, I really like that. So I would definitely encourage anybody to go to read those. Absolutely. And then the Bible Dummies I missed this time, but. I did notice that he wasn't mentioned, but the whole time reading it, I could see his hand all over it. I mean, just certain places at certain time. So this story has that meaning. I think we'll learn more about it because a lot of times books are referenced. So I think we're going to learn more down the road about Esther. There were some.
So it's just a great example of how God does not abandon you, even when you're not as faithful as you should be or whatever. He is still there. Watching over and helping to guide and shape.
Absolutely.
So, he was there.
And this is, kind of an example, too. I mean, we still can't do it on our own. God is still having his hand in that, what you just said.
Yeah.
And they called it, like, I like poetic justice, right? That's what I call it. They go from potentially being eliminated.
Makes a lot of,
to actually rising to power. The queen is Jewish. And the right hand man is Jewish, so that's a big. And these are God's chosen people.
And Esther and Mordecai, it's not like these two were perfect, faithful. I mean, they obviously had their faults, right? They married outside of their, she married the king, who was not Jewish.
Yeah.
So they married outside of their faith. There's murder in here.
Right?
Oh. So they played a hand in Haman's murder.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't call it murder, execution.
Execution.
It was the king's decree, obviously. So, and that's why I say poetic justice. I mean, they meant to kill him, and he ends up dying in his own house in something he created for somebody else. So it's reap what you sow, potentially. I mean, there's a lot of similes, I guess, here.
Yeah, but you showed how God, he'll choose to work through somebody as faithful as like Moses, but then he'll also work through people that don't have that level of faithfulness too.
Yeah, well, because that might be the whole reason why this book was introduced, because
Yeah.
we don't have a direct connection with God talking
Right.
to them or referencing God.
And I think we can relate to these individuals more than we could relate to Moses or
Oh,
somebody of that, you know.
we've all had that. I mean, there's stories and movies and books about this, right? You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and obviously that's where they came from. So it was an interesting read. We move on to Job next,
Yeah.
and then I think after Job we're in the Psalms, and we'll have to talk about how we do Psalms, because there's like what 100 and 200 or something. And I don't know. We'll have to. So I've read pieces of them. Obviously, I get my repetitive nature of we've never done this. This is cover to cover.
Yeah.
So we'll have to discuss that when we get there. But
And it is summertime, so be patient with us.
I mean, it's the interwebs. So technically, we could be doing. You know, we might have 20 more videos ahead of this one done. You just don't know.
That's true.
But the big thing is, instead of rushing, you know, we're
Yeah.
so our task, and I find it, I could go read the Bible. We could be done. We could have been done last year.
Yeah.
But we're doing this discussion, so him and I have to prepare for our discussion, and we share it with you to hope that you join this, because you can. What it does then, it makes you trying to grasp it a little bit better.
Exactly. That's why I love it so much. It's helping me to.
I just wish I could, and that's
Keep
why I
up here.
can't wait to read it again. And like I said, once we get done, we'll go back and deep dive in different things, and that's when we're really going to solidify it. Because there's, you know, I've been having discussions with other people, and I know the stories, but I forget the names and stuff.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit.
And it's great to make some notes, because, you know,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
I'm not in the mood to read again the entire book of Esther, but I can get the gist of it from my notes. And this is a quick read right here. You know,
Absolutely.
so I saved all my notes.
If you can read your notes, see, like
From the
mine.
beginning.
So he types this better than me. I just write mine out, and they're actually somewhat legible to me, so that's good. I've been taking my time.
And these are also all over the internet too, so just be careful where you're getting your information. I mean, I made these notes from
Reading.
ESV, from reading.
Yeah, read them from the
Exactly.
Bible,
So
the
just be
Bible app,
careful.
English Standard Version. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like I do, and you notice in our videos, I usually, if we have something that's pretty close, or if we're quoting it, I'll put the verse in on the video so you can see it. And that's the whole point: is you read, we discuss, and people could take away other things we can, and we'd love to hear a comment. Read a comment.
Are we ever going to comment?
We've gotten a few comments, and they were counterproductive comments.
Oh.
So, all right.
Tell Randy to get a facelift. That kind of comment?
Oh no, I don't think so. No, it was basically somebody misunderstood what our channel's called. It's Bible over a beer again. We don't read the beer and drink Bible, and he's not even drinking beer right now.
Yeah,
I do.
Take it easy, people.
Yeah, it's a beer. We're not being, we're not trying to be,
Don't judge.
well, that's not our job anyways.
There you
But
go, exactly.
you can have dissertation, or not dissertation, but the ability to pick who you want to be around, and
That's right. You don't like us? Don't watch.
absolutely. But
All right.
everybody loved to see y'all.
Great job, Steve.
You're great. It's a good
Ester.
discussion. Next is Job. You all come back
Yeah.
now. You hear? Whee! The good.